Ever wonder if the sun shining on your roof during a power outage could actually do something useful, even without a battery?
Hmm, interesting question.
Sounds a bit like science fiction, doesn't it? But it's actually a real capability in some of today's most advanced solar tech.
Right, specifically we're talking about microinverter technology from Enphase here.
Exactly. Welcome to another deep dive of Solar Scoop today titled Enphase IQ7 versus IQ8.
And we're really zeroing in on these two key generations of Enphase microinverters today.
Yeah, the IQ7 and the IQ8. Hoping to help you understand which might be the smartest choice for your home solar setup.
Now, just a quick recap maybe. Microinverters.
Good idea. So instead of one big central inverter, you get these small units, right? One under each panel.
Uh-huh. And that means each panel works independently. Really good if you've got shade issues or, panels facing different ways.
Definitely. And Enphase is a leader here, offering different models. The IQ7, kind of the established workhorse.
And the IQ8, which is their latest and greatest.
So what really sets them apart? That's our mission today, isn't it?
Pretty much. We'll be unpacking the features, the costs, compatibility, all that stuff.
Right. Drawing insights from Integrate Sun's great YouTube channel and a pretty detailed technical comparison doc we found.
All to give you the clearest picture possible.
Okay, let's start with the IQ7 family then. Integrate Sun called them the tried and true veterans.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You've got models like the standard IQ7, the IQ7 Plus, and the IQ7A.
Okay, so how do they match up with panels?
Well, think of the base IQ7. It's typically paired with panels in the, say, 235 to 350 watt range. The IQ7 Plus steps that up a bit, handles maybe 235 watts up to around 440, maybe a little more.
Yeah.
And then the IQ7A, that's for even more powerful panels, commonly in the 295 to 460 watt range, roughly.
And there was an IQ7X, too.
Yeah, the IQ7X, a bit more specialized. For 96 cell panels, you don't see those as often in residential as the standard 60 or 72 cell ones.
So a pretty solid range in the IQ7 family. But, and this is the big but, isn't it? Integrate Sun highlighted this.
Right.
None of them have that sunlight backup trick we mentioned.
Exactly. That's the crucial limitation. They're great when the grid's on, fantastic for converting DC to AC.
But if the grid goes down,
no power from them. Not unless you have a battery and a system controller, something to actually form that local grid.
Got it. So that's the key IQ7 limitation in an outage.
Precisely. Now, let's pivot to the IQ8 series. This is where things get really interesting, as the video put it.
Okay.
And just like the IQ7s, there's a whole spectrum of IQ8 models.
Also matched to different panel power outputs.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that, that sweet spot, getting the most energy without too much clipping. We should probably explain clipping soon.
Yeah, definitely. But first, walk us through the IQ8 models. Sounds like there are quite a few more options here.
There are indeed. You've got the base IQ8 and the IQ8 Plus, often the starting points. The base IQ8 lines up with similar panels to the original IQ7, that 235, 350W range.
Okay.
The IQ8 Plus is really popular, very versatile, often paired with panels from 235 up to maybe 440 watts. It's a sweet spot for a lot of common panels.
Right.
Then you step up in power handling, you get the IQ8M.
Mid-range.
Yeah, good mid-range choice.
Yeah.
Think of panels around 260 to 460 watts. Then the IQ8A handles even more, maybe 295 up to 500 watts.
For the really high-power panels we see now.
That's where the IQ8H models come in. You might see names like IQ8H240, often for panels 320 to 540 watts plus, or the IQ8H280, maybe 295 to 500 watts, sometimes for specific electrical setups.
Okay, wow.
Then there are the IQ8AC and IQ8HC. These are basically the IQ8E and IQ8HH, but they're integrated right into Enphase's racking.
Oh, interesting. Similar power.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The AC version maybe up to about 480 watts, the HC up to around 505.
And is there an IQ8X?
Yep. Just like the IQ7X, there's an IQ8X, again for those 96 cell panels, but this one can handle serious power up to 640 watts, often more for commercial jobs.
Okay.
And finally, they also list an IQ-AMC model, which seems to align with the IQ8M range, that 260 to 460 watts.
Phew. Okay, that is a lot of models, but I see the pattern, like Integrate Some pointed out. Generally, higher letter.
Means it can handle higher wattage panels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned clipping earlier, and matching these correctly is key. Can you break down what clipping is?
Absolutely. This careful matching is crucial to avoid losing energy to clipping. Installers look at something called the DC to AC ratio.
Okay, what's that?
It's pretty simple, actually. It's just the panel's maximum DC power output divided by the microinverter's maximum AC power output.
Right.
Ideally, you actually want this ratio a little bit above 1.0, maybe like 1.15 to 1.25.
Oh, where's that? Seems counterintuitive.
Well, It means your panel can produce a bit more DC power at peak times than the inverter's AC limit. But this actually helps you capture more energy overall during the day, especially when conditions aren't perfect, like cloudy mornings or afternoons.
Ah, okay. So a little oversizing is good.
A little, yes.
Yeah.
But if the ratio's too high, say you put a 500-watt panel on a microinverter rated for only 300 watts AC, then you get excessive clipping. Meaning on a bright sunny day, the panel produces more DC power than the inverter can possibly convert to AC. That extra energy just gets, well, it gets clipped off, wasted, like trying to pour a gallon of water through a tiny funnel really fast.
Okay, got it. So it's about finding that balance. Maximize harvest, minimize waste.
Precisely. Installers use compatibility tools to nail this down.
They don't just guess.
Definitely not. These tools check the DC-AC ratio, but also things like the panel's operating voltage and current, making sure they're safe and efficient for that specific microinverter.
Under different conditions, like temperature?
Exactly. Voltage changes with temperature. They also check the cell count. 6072 cell for standard, 96 for the X versions. It's all part of designing a system properly.
This is really helpful. So as a homeowner looking at a quote, how do you start making sense of the microinverter choice?
Well, like the Integrate Sun advice suggested, think about it step by step. First big question. Do you want that daytime power during an outage, the sunlight backup, without a battery?
Right.
If yes, then you're immediately looking at the IQ8 series. That's kind of decision number one.
Okay. What if sunlight backup isn't the top priority?
Then you look at the panels proposed. What's their wattage? If they're standard, say, under 440 watts, an IQ8 Plus or maybe an IQ8M could be a good fit if you still want the latest tech.
Or an IQ7 Plus could work too.
Exactly. If budget's a bigger factor and sunlight backup isn't needed, a properly matched IQ7, like the IQ7 Plus for those sub-440W panels, is still a very solid, proven choice. Just, it's the previous generation.
And if the panels are higher power, like 500 watts?
Then you really need to be looking at the higher-end IQ8s. The IQ8A, IQ8H are those integrated AC8C models. They're designed specifically to handle that kind of output without excessive clipping.
Okay, that makes the decision process clearer. It really hinges on matching the panel specs, power, voltage, current cells with the microinverter's capabilities in your desire for features like sunlight backup.
You nailed it. And don't be afraid to ask your installer why they chose a specific microinverter for your panels.
Good advice. Understanding the reasoning builds confidence.
Absolutely.
All right, fascinating stuff. We need to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll delve deeper into the tech differences, especially what makes that sunlight backup possible with the IQ8. Stay with us. Welcome back to Solar Scoop. We're diving deep into Enphase IQ7 versus IQ8 microinverters. Before the break, we covered the different models and why matching them to panels is so crucial.
Right, now let's get into the core technology that really separates these two generations.
The tech comparison doc really stressed that IQ8 isn't just an incremental step up, right? It called it a fundamental shift.
That's a great way to put it. It really is a leap, driven mainly by big advances in semiconductor tech and the whole system architecture Enphase built around it.
And the key piece of that is the IQ8 ASIC, the chip inside.
Precisely. The application-specific integrated circuit, or ASIC, in the IQ8 is custom designed and miles ahead of what's in the IQ7.
How so?
Well, it's built on a more advanced process, 55 nanometer, with high-speed digital logic. The upshot is it can react much faster.
Faster to what?
To changing conditions, fluctuations in your home's energy use, grid events, sunlight changes, anything, really. And that speed is absolutely vital for its big trick.
The grid-forming capability.
Exactly. Creating its own stable microgrid.
So it's not just faster for speed's sake. It unlocks new functions.
Totally. The IQ8 is often called software-defined. Think of it like your smartphone getting updates that add features.
Ah, okay.
The IQ8 can get firmware updates remotely, allowing it to adapt to new grid rules, potentially even gain new features down the line. Much more flexible than the IQ7.
And does that faster processing help with basic stuff too, like getting power from the panels?
It likely does, yeah. It probably benefits the MPPT algorithms, that's maximum power point tracking, how it optimizes panel output, and it helps it handle complex grid conditions more smoothly. So potentially small performance gains and just more robust operation overall, even grid-tied.
Okay, sounds like a serious upgrade inside. Now let's circle back to that sunlight backup. How does the IQ8 actually do that? Power the house from the sun during an outage?
Okay, this is the biggest tech difference. IQ7s, like most traditional inverters, are grid following. They need a stable grid signal or a battery providing one to operate.
Right. They follow the grid's lead.
Exactly. But IQ8s have grid-forming capability. They
Uh-huh.
can independently create their own stable AC waveform. They make their own little microgrid right there at your house during an outage.
Using just the DC power from the panel.
Using just the DC from the panels. That's sunlight backup. It lets specific circuits run during a daytime outage. No battery needed.
Wow, and the IQ7 just can't do that.
Nope. No grid-forming ASIC, no independent operation. It needs help, either the utility grid or a battery system, with the controller acting as the grid former.
So power goes out, sunny day. IQ8 system with the right extras could keep the fridge running, maybe the internet, directly from the sun.
Potentially, yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's a real game changer for daytime outages. But, and this is important, you need the right extras.
Ah, the catch. What's required?
You absolutely must have an Enphase IQ system controller, Model 2, 3, or the newer 3G.
What does that do?
It's the MID, the microgrid interconnect device. It safely disconnects you from the utility grid during the outage, which is what allows the IQ8s to form their own safe microgrid.
Okay, makes sense. Anything else?
Typically, yes. You'll usually need at least one Enphase IQ load controller. That's how you manage which circuits get that backup power. You don't usually back up everything.
Right, just the essentials.
Exactly. And of course, the whole thing needs to be installed correctly, following all the rules and codes for safety. UL 1741 compliance is key here.
Got it. So it's a system, not just the microinverters.
Yeah.
And how does it actually feel in operation? Is it like having full power?
Not quite like a full battery backup. Remember, power availability is directly tied to sunlight in real time.
So clouds are bad news?
Clouds will definitely affect it. Power will fluctuate, maybe even drop out momentarily if a big cloud passes over. It's designed for essential loads, not running your whole house AC unit, for example.
And the total power is limited by the sun at that moment.
Precisely. But here's where the IQ8 speed helps again. It can adjust its output super fast to match exactly what those backup loads are drawing.
Why is that important?
It prevents voltage instability. If loads switch on and off suddenly, a slower system might struggle. But the IQ8 manages those changes smoothly within its microgrid.
Okay, so it's smart about handling the available solar power. Now, what if you do add batteries? Does the IQ8 still have advantages over the IQ7 then?
Oh, absolutely. Even with an IQ battery system, the IQ8 brings some key benefits.
Like what?
One big one is cold start capability, or sometimes called black start.
Meaning?
Okay, imagine a long outage. Grid's down, your battery runs out overnight.
Yeah, not good.
With an IQ8 system, when the sun comes up, the panels can actually wake up the system by themselves. They can start powering loads and recharging the battery directly from solar.
And an IQ7 system can't do that.
Not usually. If the battery's dead and the grid's down, an IQ7 system might just sit there until the grid comes back, or you need a generator to kickstart it.
Wow, okay, that's a significant resilience feature. Anything else?
Yes, combined power output. During a sunny outage, an IQ8 system can use power from both the solar panels and the battery at the same time to power your house.
So you get more backup power than just the battery's limit?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
The total power available could exceed the battery's maximum discharge rate because the solar is contributing directly too. An IQ7 system, remember, can't run the microinverters without a grid signal from the battery controller in this case. So you're generally limited just by the battery's output power.
So IQ8 offers more robustness whether you go battery-free for daytime backup or want enhanced battery performance.
That's the gist of it, yeah. It offers this tiered approach to resilience. Starts with sunlight backup, goes up to a more powerful, more reliable battery backup. It's technically the superior choice if energy security and independence are high on your list.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and get into the nitty-gritty specs. We know the features, but what about the numbers under the hood?
Right, the technical specifications. These really influence system design, panel compatibility, and ultimately performance. Let's start with AC output power.
Okay, how do some common models compare?
Sure. So for IQ7s, the base IQ7 peaks at 250 VA, that's volt amperes, basically AC power capacity. IQ7 Plus is 295 VA, IQ7A is 366 VA, and the IQ7X is 320 VA.
And the IQ8?
The IQ8 base is 245 VA, IQ8 Plus is 300 VA, IQ8M is 330 VA, IQ8A matches the IQ7A at 366 VA, IQ8H is 384 VA, and the IQ8X also hits 384 VA.
Pretty close in some cases.
They are, but remember, these can vary slightly with grid voltage. The main point, as we discussed with clipping, is matching this output to your panel's power so you're not choking off energy. The VA rating is like the size of the pipe for AC power.
Right, got it. What about the DC input side? What specs matter there?
Several key ones. First, maximum input DC voltage, or Vmax. This is critical. It's the absolute highest voltage the micro can handle from the panel.
And the panel voltage can change.
Yep, especially with temperature, it goes up when it's cold. So the panel's open circuit voltage, VOC, must never exceed the microinverter's Vmax, even on the coldest possible day.
Okay. What are the typical Vmax values?
For IQ7s, it ranges from 50 V on the base up to 79.5 V for the IQ7X. Most IQ8s are 60 Vmax, but the IQ8X also goes up to that 79.5 V for the 96-cell panels.
What else on the DC side?
The MPPT voltage range, that's the voltage window where the microinverter works best to pull maximum power. Ideally, your panel's its voltage at max power sits nicely within this range during normal operation. Then there's maximum continuous input, DC current, IDs max. This is a big one.
How do they compare?
IQ77 plus are around 10-12 amps, IQ7A about 10.2A, IQ7X lower at 6.5A. For IQ8s, many are 12 amps, but some newer, higher power ones can take up to 14 amps.
Okay. And one more.
Maximum module short circuit current, ISC. How much current the panel might produce in a short circuit. IQ7s varied, maybe 15A, sometimes 20A or 25A. IQ8s are commonly rated higher, like 20A or 25A.
So it sounds like a key difference looking at those numbers is that IQ8 generally handles higher DC current.
That's a really sharp observation, and yes, it's crucial. The higher IDs max and ISC ratings on the IQ8 series are super important.
Why?
Because the solar panel industry is pushing towards higher power panels, right?
Huh.
And often that means higher operating currents, bigger cells, new tech.
So the IQ8 is better equipped for modern panels.
Exactly. It can handle that increased electrical flow from these powerful new panels without exceeding limits or causing compatibility headaches that some older IQ7 models might face. It's more future-proof in that sense.
Makes perfect sense. What about efficiency? Is one noticeably better at converting DC to AC?
Honestly, they're both really, really good. Peak efficiency for comparable models in both series is usually super close, like 97.0% to 97.8%.
Wow, that's high.
It is. And the CEC weighted efficiency, which is arguably a better real-world measure, is also very similar, maybe 96.5% to 97.5%. You might see a tiny edge for some IQ8s, maybe 0.5%, but it's rarely more than 1%.
So efficiency probably isn't the deciding factor.
Generally not, no. Both do that core job extremely well.
Physically then, are the IQ8s bigger, heavier?
Surprisingly, no. Mechanically and environmentally, they're almost identical. Same compact size, same low weight.
Same casing?
Yep, same tough, Class 2 double-insulated polymeric enclosure, same IP67 rating for water and dust, same natural convection cooling, no fans, same operating temperature range, pretty much.
So they deliberately kept the physical form factor consistent?
It really seems that way. Makes things easier for installers, ensures physical backward compatibility, maintains a consistent look. They focus the upgrades inside.
Smart. Okay, so keeping that consistent form factor but upgrading the internals. That leads us back to panel matching. It's clearly not just about wattage.
Absolutely not. Getting the pairing right is just critical for performance, for lifespan, and crucially, for your warranty.
So let's recap the general guidelines. Cell counts, power ranges. How do they line up?
Okay, so IQ7s. The 7 Plus are mainly for your standard 60-cell or 120 half-cell panels, though the 7 Plus handles 72144 too. IQ7A was for higher power 6072-cell panels of its time. IQ7X for 96-cell. Power-wise, think roughly 235W up to maybe 460W plus FE, depending on the model.
And the IQ8s.
More versatile generally. The Plus MAH models handle a broad range, 54, 60, 66, 72-cell in their half-cut versions. The base IQ8 prefers 60-cell, IQ8X again for 96-cell and maybe newer formats. Power-wise, they stretch higher, easily handling panels over 500W with the A, H, and X models.
So IQ8 is definitely more aligned with today's higher power panels.
For sure. It's designed to accommodate panels pushing past 500W, which is beyond where most IQ7s comfortably sit.
And that DCA series show we discussed.
Yeah.
The key takeaway.
Enphase doesn't set hard limits, but significant oversizing will cause clipping. Don't just slap the biggest panel on any micro. The ideal ratio depends on your specific site, roof tilt, climate, panel type, goals. Your installer needs to figure that out.
And the IQ8's higher current handling is a big plus here.
Definitely. Higher ICMX and ISC ratings mean fewer compatibility issues with modern high-current panels. Just a better fit.
What about bifacial panels, the ones that capture light from the back, too?
Both IQ7 and IQ8 are compatible, yeah. But with bifacials, the installer really needs to consider that extra energy gain from the back. It can definitely increase clipping if the micro isn't sized right for that potential boost.
Okay, this all just highlights how complex proper system design is. How does anyone guarantee compatibility?
Right, you can't just trust the basic numbers on the datasheet. Panel voltage and current change with temperature.
So,
So Enphase has the official module compatibility calculator online. This is non-negotiable for installers.
what does it do?
They have to plug in the specific panel datasheet values, VOC, VM, EASE, temperature coefficients, plus the site's likely high and low temperatures. The calculator then confirms if that specific panel on microinverter pairing is compliant and, crucially, warrantied.
And if you don't use it, or use an incompatible pair?
You can void your warranty,
Yeah.
simple as that. Using that calculator is absolutely essential for a safe, performing, and protected system.
That is super important advice. Don't skip that step. Verify with the official tool.
Exactly. Protect your investment.
Okay, so these micros don't work alone. They're part of the bigger Enphase energy system. How do IQ7 and IQ8 fit in with gateways, batteries, controllers?
Good question. Yeah, they operate within that wider ecosystem. Compatibility with the gateway, batteries, and system controllers is key to getting everything working right, especially the advanced features.
Let's start with the IQ gateway, formerly the Envoy, right? Is it needed for both?
Yes, absolutely mandatory for both IQ7 and IQ8 installs. It's the brain, the communication hub.
What does it do specifically?
Collects data from every micro, connects to the Enphase cloud for monitoring and updates, and importantly, it's required for the warranty. You often see it integrated in IQ combiner boxes now, too.
And compatibility. Do modern gateways work with both?
Mostly, yes. Most current IQ gateways work fine with both IQ7 and IQ8. Maybe some edge cases with very old M-series micros needing specific models, but for standard IQ7, IQ8 setups, you're usually good.
Okay. Now, battery compatibility. This feels like a big differentiator, especially with the newer IQ Battery 5P.
It is. This is where you see the real split. The older Gen 2 batteries, IQ Battery 3, 10, and the end-of-life 3T10T. Those are compatible with both IQ7 and IQ8, provided you have the right IQ system controller like the SE2 for backup.
But the new IQ Battery 5P.
That's different. It's really optimized for and often requires the IQ8 ecosystem. Specifically, you need the IQ System Controller 3 or 3G to go with it.
Can you use a 5P with IQ7s?
Technically, maybe, but it can get complicated. Might need special communication kits, could run into grid compliance issues. Enphase really pairs the 5P with IQ8 and the SC33G, and you definitely can't mix the 5P with the older Gen 2 batteries in the same system.
So if you're planning on the latest battery tech, IQ8 is pretty much the way to go.
It's definitely the smoother intended path for the IQ Battery 5P,
Yes. And the system controller itself, we keep mentioning it. What's the compatibility story there?
Right, the controller acts as the MID, essential for backup. The IQ System Controller 2 works with both IQ7 and IQ8 for backup, with those Gen 2 batteries. It's also the minimum needed for IQ8's sunlight backup.
But not for the 5P battery.
Correct. SE2 is not compatible with the IQ Battery 5P. For that, you need the IQ System Controller 3 or the 3G.
And the SE3 3G work with both IQ7 and IQ8 micros.
Yes, they're compatible with both microinverter series, but they're really designed for the 5T battery. Enphase recommends the SE3 or 3G for any new IQ8 installation, especially if storage or backup is involved. The 3G model adds generator integration too.
Okay. And these newer controllers enable other features.
Yeah, things like Sunlight Jumpstart, which is related to that Black Start capability. And they integrate the Power Control System, or PCS.
Now, a common question. Can you mix IQ7 and IQ8 micros in one system?
The mixing question. Officially, Enphase generally says no. Don't mix them on the same gateway or system, especially if you want backup.
Why not?
It just complicates things. You wouldn't get the IQ8 specific features, like sunlight backup, might have weird behavior. While maybe technically possible in some limited grid-tied scenarios, it's really best practice to keep the system homogeneous, all IQ7 or all IQ8. Simpler, more reliable, full features.
Makes sense. And you mentioned PCS power control system. What does that enable?
That's enabled by the newer components, SC33G, IQ8, 5P battery working together. It allows for smarter energy management. Things like avoiding a main panel upgrade by intelligently controlling power flows, setting export limits if your utility requires it, managing how the battery and solar work together, especially if your solar array is much larger than your battery charge rate.
Can IQ7 systems do any of that?
Some basic PCS functions might work, but the really advanced integrated stuff is often tied to having IQ8s and/or the IQ Battery 5P with the newer system controller.
So it really feels like there's a split in the ecosystem now. IQ7 is kind of the legacy path, still good for grid-tied or older battery systems.
Right.
While IQ8 with the Gen 3 controller and battery is the path for all the advanced features and future stuff.
That's a perfect summary. There's backward compatibility, but accessing the full modern feature set really pushes you towards IQ8 and the newer supporting gear.
Okay, let's talk reliability and warranty. Huge factors for homeowners. How do IQ7 and IQ8 stack up?
Enphase has built a really strong reputation here, long-term performance, reliability, solid warranty. And that applies to both series.
We talked efficiency pretty close between them.
Yeah, peak and weighted efficiencies are very similar, less than 1% difference usually. Any small performance edge with IQ8 might come from faster MPPT or maybe burst mode and low light, but the big energy difference drivers are more likely its ability to handle higher current panels or the grid forming stuff.
And how do they ensure they're reliable? What about testing?
They do a ton of testing. Both series go through over 1 million cumulative hours of power-on testing before release. That's extensive.
Million hours, wow.
Yeah, so the IQ7 has years of real-world data proving its reliability, and the IQ8 builds right on that foundation using similar rigorous testing.
And physically, we said they're almost identical. Same tough enclosure, IP67 rating, no fans. That must help durability.
Absolutely. That consistent, robust physical design class 2, corrosion-resistant, natural cooling, is engineered for harsh outdoor conditions and contributes significantly to their long-term reliability. Eliminating fans removes a common failure point, too.
And the warranty. That 25-year warranty is a big deal. Is it the same for both?
Typically, yes. In major markets like the US, Canada, Europe, Enphase usually offers that limited warranty of up to 25 years for both IQ7 and IQ8 series micros.
That's much longer than typical string inverters.
Way longer. Now, terms can vary by region, and you usually need that internet-connected IQ gateway for monitoring to maintain the full warranty.
And the fact they offer 25 years on the more complex IQ8.
It really shows their confidence, doesn't it? Despite the advanced tech inside, they're backing its long-term reliability, just like the proven IQ7.
So, bottom line on reliability and warranty. Pretty consistent, high quality across both generations.
That's the message, yeah. Strong reputation, backed by strong testing, and a strong warranty for both.
Okay, what about the folks actually putting these on the roof, the installers? Is the installation process much different for IQ7 versus IQ8?
Physically installing the microinverters themselves, largely the same, which is great for installers.
How so?
Well, both are lightweight, compact, use those easy plug-and-play connectors, pretty straightforward to handle and mount on the racking.
And they both use that IQ cable system for wiring.
Yep, both use the 2-wire IQ cable trunk system, carries AC power, and the communication signal. It simplifies wiring quite a bit compared to older methods.
Right.
They usually have the MC4 connectors built in for the panel connection too, though sometimes you might need an adapter cable for certain specific models.
What about grounding? That used to be more work.
Simplified for both, thankfully. Because they're Class 2 double insulated with integrated ground fault protection, you don't need to run a separate ground wire to every single micro.
Oh, that saves time and material.
Big time. System grounding is handled centrally, usually at the combiner box or panel, per code.
And rapid shutdown, critical safety feature.
Built into both series, yes. Fully compliant with NEC rapid shutdown rules when installed correctly with an IQ gateway, essential for firefighter safety.
So the physical install sounds very similar. Where does the difference in effort come in?
Mostly during commissioning, especially if the IQ8 system has backup.
Sunlight backup or battery backup?
Either one. The basic steps, scanning serial numbers, mapping the array in the app, connecting to the internet, those are similar. But an IQ8 backup system requires that IQ system controller. That's extra hardware to wire in, configure, integrate. If you're also using IQ load controllers for specific backup circuits, that's more complexity too.
So more steps, more configuration for IQ8 backup.
Definitely. Installing the IQ8 micros themselves isn't much different from IQ7s, but the overall system commissioning for backup takes more time, more expertise than a simple grid-tied IQ7 setup.
Okay, that makes sense. More features, more setup involved.
Pretty much. Grid-tied only. Install effort is comparable. Add backup to IQ8. Expect more labor time.
All right, let's get down to the dollars and cents cost, often the deciding factor. How do IQ7 and IQ8 systems compare financially, especially when you factor in backup?
Yeah, this is where the trade-offs really come into focus. Upfront cost versus features. And yes, IQ8 generally has a premium, particularly with the backup components.
How much more for just the microinverters?
Unit cost for an IQ8 is typically, say, 15% to 25% higher than the comparable IQ7 model.
Can you give an example?
Sure, maybe a base IQ7 is around $145. The comparable IQ8 might be closer to $166.50. That's about 15% more. You see similar percentage bumps comparing the Plus models, the A models, and the X models too, often 20–25% more for the IQ8X.
So maybe $35, $40 extra per micro, anecdotally.
That sounds about right based on some reports, yeah. So even for a basic grid-tied system, no battery. Just choosing IQ8 means a higher initial cost for the micros.
Okay. What happens to the cost when you add backup?
This is where the difference gets much bigger. For grid-tied, it's mostly just that microinverter premium. But if you want sunlight backup only possible with IQ8,
Right.
you have to buy the IQ system controller. That's a significant added cost. Maybe $2,000 plus just for the unit, plus install labor, and maybe load controllers on top of that. That whole layer of cost just doesn't exist for an IQ7 system since it can't do sunlight backup.
Okay, that's a big jump just for daytime backup. What about battery backup?
It depends. An IQ7 system usually pairs with the older Gen 2 batteries and the IQ system controller too. An IQ8 system, especially with the new IQ battery 5P, needs the IQ system controller 3 or 3G, which might cost more than the SE2.
So the controller needed for IQ8 plus 5P might be pricier?
Potentially, yes. So the total cost difference for a system with backup is likely much larger than just the difference in microinverter prices. It's driven heavily by needing that system controller for any IQ8 backup and potentially a more expensive controller if using the latest battery.
And installation labor costs higher for IQ8 backup too.
Likely, yes. As we said, grid-tied labor is probably similar. But installing and commissioning the system controller, load controllers for an IQ8 backup system just takes more time and skill. So higher labor cost is probable.
So summing up the value proposition then, IQ7 is the budget choice for grid-tied.
Right. Lower upfront cost, proven performance, great if backup isn't a priority.
And IQ8 is the premium feature-rich choice.
Exactly. You pay more, but you get sunlight backup potential, better battery integration, better compatibility with the newest high-power panels, more future-proofing. The higher cost makes sense if you highly value energy security, want the latest tech, or need it for cutting-edge panels.
You put together a simple cost comparison framework. Can you walk through that?
Sure. Think of grid-tied IQ7 as the baseline cost. Grid-tied IQ8 will be moderately higher cost, micro premium. IQ8 with sunlight backup jump, significantly higher, needs SC, maybe low controllers. IQ7 with Gen 2 battery backup is also a significant cost jump, batteries plus SC2. And then IQ8 with the new IQ battery 5P is likely the highest cost tier. Premium micros plus potentially pricier SE33G plus advanced battery.
Those are relative costs, of course.
Exactly. Actual prices depend on system size, installer incentives, but it shows the relative tiers.
That's a really helpful way to visualize it. Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the number one takeaway for listeners trying to choose between IQ7 and IQ8?
I think the main takeaway is IQ7 is still a solid, reliable, cost-effective choice, especially for straightforward grid-tied systems. IQ8 offers advanced features, particularly sunlight backup and better battery integration, but it comes at a higher overall cost.
So the best choice really depends on individual needs, budget, and how much you value resilience and panel compatibility.
Precisely. What are your priorities? What panels are you using? Do you need or want backup now or potentially later?
And we can't stress this enough. Use that official Enphase module compatibility calculator.
Absolutely critical. Ensures proper pairing, performance, safety, and keeps that warranty valid. Don't skip it.
For personalized advice tailored to your specific situation, we definitely encourage reaching out to experts like the team at Integrate Sun for a consultation.
Good idea. They can help weigh the pros and cons for your home.
And maybe a final thought for you to consider. How important is having some power during a daytime outage to your household? Could that IQ8 sunlight backup be a real game changer, even without investing in a full battery system right away?
Or looking ahead, as panels keep getting more powerful, will the IQ8's better compatibility future-proof your solar investment more effectively? Something to think about.
Definitely food for thought. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today into the fascinating world of Enphase microinverters.